You know those two guys from work who won't shut up about football, but are pretty damn entertaining? Well, they decided to buy a couple microphones. And with that, we welcome you to the Cheesy Corn Sports Podcast, where Justin Adams and Martin Cheney wrangle over everything college football and NFL. Bold predictions, hot takes, and live game reactions. This is Cheesy Corn Sports. And now, here's your hosts, Justin and Martin.
Welcome back into Cheesy Corn Sports, everyone. I'm Martin Cheney, joined as always by my co-host, Justin Adams. And today in this video, we're going to be going over our top 5 rookie quarterback rankings from a Dynasty fantasy football format. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. Ready to get this show on the road. Try to finally get on with some little bit of Dynasty content while we're in the downfall of the redraft season, where everybody just kind of forgets it for a little while. So,
absolutely, I agree. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into it. I say we start from our back, our number 5 here. Actually, or if we have a sleeper pick that didn't quite make the top 5, we can start there. We'll bounce back and forth, and we'll rise to the top all the way to the QB1. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So who do you have as a sleeper pick, not necessarily in your top 5 quarterbacks?
All right. So my sleeper pick is going to be Jaren Hall from BYU. Really, he's with the projected draft capital that he's supposed to get. He's probably going to need a little bit of an impressive pro day, maybe something to get him up in the kind of Tanner McKee range of the 3rd round. But I actually like Jaren Hall a little bit better than Tanner McKee, but if he doesn't get the draft capital, it's going to be tough for him. But very good at decision making. You know, he has really good touch and placement. You know, he doesn't really have a ton of arm strength. The velocity in his arm is just kind of like, you know, it's sporadic. Sometimes he can put some zip on it, but at the longer throws, he struggles. But if he could be, I think, kind of like a really good like game manager, kind of like a Brock Purdy type of deal, where if he's put in the right situation, he could succeed. I don't think it's going to be a lot of him getting out there and doing too much crazy stuff on his own. He's going to need to be in a system that can protect him and give him some time. So, yeah, that's my favorite sleeper right now.
Okay, sounds good. We'll get into my sleeper pick here, and that is Dorian Thompson-Robinson from UCLA, DTR. He played absolutely out of his mind this past year. He had 27 passing touchdowns through the air, in addition to 12 rushing touchdowns on the ground. Kind of like Jaren Hall, kind of average arm strength. He can put some zip on like the shorter passes, you know, when he needs to. But what really stood out to me for DTR was his progression from his junior to senior season. In that span, right? Just in comparison, he threw 6 more passing touchdowns while having those double-digit rushing touchdowns. He had 700 more yards, and his completion percentage went up by 8%. When you're a starting quarterback in a Power 5 conference that throws the ball as much as any of these teams do, 8% is a lot.
Yep.
That is a lot of completions difference from your junior to senior year. I think he could be a later round QB. His mobility just serves as a lot of good upside for, you know, like a Baltimore Ravens or an Atlanta Falcons or one of those offenses that just really thrives off of a quarterback taking it into their own hands and making a play out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, I'm going to move right into my QB5, and it's your sleeper pick. It's Jaren Hall out of BYU. Just watching his game tape, right? He played great in like 80% of his games this past year. He played great against Oregon, Wyoming, Utah State. Like, there was a vast amount of competition, you know, and difficulty and stuff like that.
Yep.
But, I mean, when you commit to Brigham Young University, you understand you're not going to be playing SEC teams every single week.
Exactly.
So there were some games that he did struggle in, like Notre Dame. He struggled greatly. But like you said, he's an accurate passer. He's mobile. He's athletic. Has a average arm. Like he can throw a football as much as any NFL type QB you would expect. Just from looking at the NFL scouts notes that I've been like reading up on, people are really viewing him as a backup with some game manager upside. So, ceiling probably like a Jimmy Garoppolo kind of career trajectory. So yeah, I mean, this QB5 spot is tough just because there's so many different guys that you could probably slide in there. But I think if he gets taken round 3, round 4, somewhere in there's definitely a reason to take a late round flyer on him in some dynasty formats.
Yeah, 100% agreed, especially, in the late rounds in the super flex leagues where the quarterbacks are kind of a premium there. You could see him kind of going in the first 3 rounds. So,
Yep, that's it for Jaren Hall for me. Take us into your QB5.
All right, QB5 is going to be Hendon Hooker. Okay. The knock for me on Hendon Hooker, this pre-injury was the age. He played his full career at Tennessee. That means when he comes into the draft, he is going to be 25 years old, which is the same age as Lamar Jackson, unless Lamar Jackson turned 26 recently. But still, because the thing is, he projects well with his size, right? He's very mobile. He has a lot of pro style type of attributes. He has a good arm. He has good touch. Fundamentals are there. I just think that overall, he was kind of not really well versed in going through his progressions. He typically likes to lock onto his first read. The best way that, when I was watching his film, kind of what I saw is just with the passing alone, is he's kind of like a less refined version of CJ Stroud, where it's just, to me, without using the legs and stuff like that, it's just their passing fundamentals. And he's very good fundamentally, but just for some reason, he just reading the field and the football IQ doesn't seem to be as quick as a lot of the guys ahead of him. And with the injury, that was kind of the death knell for me, because now he's going to have to work into an offense, a new system, while rehabbing from an injury, and kind of learn these things quickly, because again, he's 25. But quarterback has the most longevity, but with Hendon Hooker's play style, typically not. We see dual threat quarterbacks go down much quicker. So that I just can't put him any higher than this based on the shelf life. The potential shelf life of his career is going to be extremely short.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah. So Hendon Hooker was actually one that I toyed around with at QB5. I ended up going with Jaren Hall just because there's now the injury with Hooker and his age, and how's that going to look? He normally, there's a lot of questions when it comes to quarterbacks that have that one magical year, right? So it's, I don't know. I left him off. I definitely looked into him, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Take us into your QB4. Let's just keep climbing up the ranks here.
So my QB4 is going to be Will Levis. And I wasn't as big a fan of Will Levis as most people I feel are. I feel like he's kind of one of those individuals that's a late flyer up of draft boards, like a Zach Wilson type, but a little bit earlier. He's the typical, the way I described him in my kind of high level overview is that his intangibles are fooling everyone, right? He's got the size, he's got the build, but if you look at the actual quarterback, it's not refined. So he has size, but what is size going to do? Quarterbacks are getting smaller and smaller in the NFL, but his size, he's athletic to a point, but I'll get into that a little bit more. So right now he's 24 years old. So again, age is a concern with him. And I put draft capital is the only reason he's this high. So the pros with him, right? He has elite arm talent. He's going to come into the league and be probably top 10 in arm strength immediately.
Yep.
He's got the NFL frame. He's got average accuracy, average to good. He's got a quick release. He's got size. He's tough, and like I said, he's athletic. He's mobile, and he's very good over the middle of the field. He's very good at anticipation throws. So that was kind of the main thing that stood out was the anticipation throws, and being good to the middle of the field. Size has a lot to do with that. Like typically Russell Wilson, for instance, right? He's undersized. He throws to the sidelines a ton. He barely throws to the middle of the field because of his size. So that's where his frame helps him. Now let's get into the cons. So he's bad versus pressure. He gets happy feet in the pocket before the pressure even gets there. It's like he's anticipating it. He's a bad thrower on the run, and he's below average under pressure, but extremely bad trying to throw on the run. Typically pressure causes him to throw off his back foot, which sometimes he has touch on his deep balls, but when he gets forced in the pocket like that and has to throw off his back foot, he loses all the ability to put touch on his deep pass. So I would say that's kind of average, his deep ball touch. He takes way too many sacks, holds the ball way too long, not good at escaping pressure. And unlike Bryce Young, he tends to put his eyes down when he's escaping pressure. He loses the field. And this has led to moments to where he can't keep the play going. He gets strung out and gets sacked anyways, because he just doesn't keep his eyes up. He doesn't continue to go through his reads. So while he's trying to get back up and trying to be on the run and make a throw, that leads to him being really bad throwing on the run. So a lot of people with him, though, right, they have these kind of outs for him. So, he regressed year over year. He didn't take the leap he was supposed to, but he battled through injuries over the course of the season, right? Which to me is a little weird because injuries are everybody's concern with Bryce Young, but Will Levis was the one that was banged up through the course of the season. He lost wide receiver talent from last year to this year. He's lost his offensive coordinator. His O-line was bad. I don't think he's going to translate to more than an average QB at the next level. And landing spot to me is extremely important. Like I think best case scenario, Colts for him. That's best case. And the thing people are talking about though, with his O-line, like that's the biggest thing that people blame for his O-line. And, I did have a little something I'll pull up in a little bit that kind of goes over the in the pocket numbers between Levis, Young, Stroud, and really kind of break down that whole thing about his O-line being that bad. And we'll kind of dive into the numbers a little bit deeper there. The main games I watched was Tennessee, which he played horribly. Mississippi State was good, and he was really good in Missouri. So competition does play a part in that clearly. So yep. But Will Levis is my QB4, and like I said, I'm just not as high on him as most. That's just kind of my take on it. He's sliding up above Stroud and above both of them in some cases. I'm not with that.
Well, you can consider me not a part of most because my QB4 is also Will Levis from Kentucky. I'm not going to harp too much on it. You basically covered everything I wanted to talk about here. Listed at 6'3", 230. That's a tremendous quarterback frame. But the real question is, how much does a quarterback size really matter in today's NFL? You see a lot more smaller QBs reach that QB1 elite status. I think if he is taken high in the draft, then it comes in the conversation of, okay, well, maybe I can take him in your rookie drafts just because the opportunity for him to play is going to be there. And we've seen some, you can never really tell what's going to happen with these guys' careers once the NFL development gets a hold of them. Some guys respond great. Some guys, turn into a bust. It is what it is. All we can do is make an educated guess off of what we've seen and what we know but we can't tell the future, right? So I think if the draft capital is there is cause for you to take him. There's no doubt in his release, the quarterback mechanics of like his throwing motion and all that stuff is that in itself is a step above most, if not all, these other quarterbacks in the draft. But he struggled against top defenses all year long, right? Like you had talked about. Anytime any piece of actual decision making comes into play, kind of breaks down for him.
Yep.
So a lot of people are kind of coining him as this year's Zach Wilson, right? My thing is the only impressive piece of tape I've ever seen on him are it's his practice tape. Mm-hmm. It's, he doesn't have pads on. It's not in a game. It's just, oh, look how quick this guy throws the ball. Look at the high point release of this guy. And that's great, but you're not doing that against a defense at all. Right. You're just showing me how pretty the throw looks. Mm-hmm. He's very prone to make mental mistakes, which definitely causes turnover. There was one game, I forget which one it was, but if you look at his stats, it actually looked very good. However, he also made a mental mistake towards the end of the game, which caused him to fumble, and they lost the game because of it. Yep. So even though the passing stats showed something else, he's still the reason they lost.
Exactly. Yeah.
As far as the talent goes, he's not really first round worthy in my mind, but we all know that NFL teams love to reach for quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So I agree with the Indy draw.
Yeah.
I think he could be a project QB, maybe a team with an older quarterback that's going to retire in a year or two. And this is a ceiling play, right? You're playing to the prospect of a ceiling.
Yep.
For Will Levis there.
Yep.
So, okay, let's move on to QB.
Yeah. Well, one more thing with him, especially, and the reason why it's so important where he ends up is because he needs to be in a place where it kind of the game plays out in front of him in a structured way. That way, it takes some of the decision-making off of his plate. And I think Indy's a great spot to do that because they run through Jonathan Taylor. And so if he has an established run game that can help set him up, I think that takes some of the pressure off him. So
what about Seattle?
I don't know if Seattle's going to go quarterback. I
only say that just because I don't think Seattle pays Geno Smith. Seattle has shown just a reluctancy to pay quarterbacks, pay people in general. So I think
they showed that they can, make a QB better, right?
Exactly.
Geno Smith was not going to do that in most places, right? We know what Geno Smith is, but they brought whatever they brought out of him. They brought the best out of him. And so at least they know they can do that. So they might want to restart with their own guy and don't really worry that he has too many flaws,
Right. You have an improving O-line. You have Kenneth Walker. You still have a great receiving core in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf.
Yep.
Who's their tight end that they had?
Not on Seattle?
Fan. No, it's Noah Fant. Yeah.
Yes, Noah Fant.
Still a great athletic tight end. Mm-hmm. Their defense took leaps and bounds in improvement this year. I think Seattle's a great fit for him. Yep. But that, I guess we'll see, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they got a run game too. So that would also be a good spot. And again, just they're really good at game planning offensively. So
definitely. Okay, let's get into our top three here. And I hate myself for liking my QB3 more and more and more. And it is AR-15, Anthony Richardson of the Florida Gators. Mm-hmm. This dude's size is tremendous. 6'4", 235.
Yep.
Every time I look at his tape, it's a mix of Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, but he's bigger than Lamar Jackson. His highlight, so not his game tape where we actually analyze, right? But his highlight reel is astounding. Like, this dude pulls off some of the most amazing highlight throws. but it's not consistent, right? He has an elite rushing upside for any RPO West Coast type of offense where the quarterback can get it, make some defenders dance in the open field kind of thing. But there is some cause for concern. He didn't play that well against teams like USF, Kentucky, type of mediocre type defenses. But then he goes out and he plays amazing against Tennessee. Had some really good wow factor moments against LSU. I think combine all of that with the draft capital of late round, early second, kind of like a Jalen Hurts draft capital kind of area. He definitely has a chance to show what he's capable of, which, again, very similar to what happened with Lamar Jackson with Jalen Hurts, right? They took the scene at the end of their rookie year. They balled out, and then they went and they won an MVP the next year. Well, Jalen Hurts hasn't won an MVP, but
should.
He's kind of on his way.
Yeah.
I think if he has a good combine, he's very intriguing. I don't know if he's going to run at the combine. These are the types of prospects that they're known for their athleticism.
Right.
And so all the scouts want them to be like, oh, well, would you try out at tight end? Would you try out at receiver? And they go, no, I'm a quarterback. I'm not running the 40 until my pro day now.
Right.
And it's possible we see that. But, 4.5, 4.6, he's very capable of running that in a 40, which I think is similar to Justin Fields. I think his was like 4.49 or 4.59, something like that. So it's very intriguing. And I think with some development, Anthony Richardson could very well be a steal.
Yeah, that's why he's also at 3 for me. It's kind of his floor is not nearly high enough to put him ahead of the likes of Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, but my flaws with Will Levis and Hendon Hooker are so ample that this is kind of where he ends up anyways, just because of the pure upside and the draft capital. Because if he goes late first, early second, it's looking like he might go more early second now, but it's going to take somebody who can develop him. Because so for me, what I have for him is he's a boomer bust. He's very raw. He's elite combination, size, speed, arm, and build. The dude has a rocket. He has a cannon of an arm. Extremely inconsistent. Like the moments between him being extremely good and extremely bad come back-to-back plays. He'll make the throw of his life and then just dirt one the next. It's perplexing sometimes. But that is what gives him the highest ceiling, but the lowest floor at the same time. So he's a pure risk. So the pros that I have for him, he's an elite athlete, great runner. The dude can run with the best of them. He's going to be one of the better running quarterbacks here, which also, as we know, in fantasy, it just makes their value that much more. He's calm and poised in the pocket. He's improved over the course of the season, which was good to see. If you watch his games in succession, he actually got better as the season went along and had his best stretch towards the end. So that shows that there's some kind of development of some sort happening there. He's really good in play action, and he's comfortable in the kind of mid-intermediate level of passing. So my cons, and my first one is just the best way to describe him is he's not a good quarterback. Like he's not a good quarterback yet. Like
no,
he is a athlete with elite arm strength and arm talent, the perfect build and a lot of athleticism. And he knows how to throw a football. Not well, but he knows how to throw it. So I do think that like he's so good, just without being refined in a lot of areas, that with that refinement, he can be, I'm talking about his upside is like top 10 quarterback in fantasy because of his overall skill set. So the other cons, poor footwork, not really good with pocket presence. He's not able to find open space and really navigate in the pocket. Sometimes he kind of just walks forward until he walks into the pressure, and runs into pressure as he's trying to make a throw instead of kind of finding the void in it and stepping out and around and buying himself a little bit more time. He'll either leave the pocket too early or he'll leave it too late and just never really seems comfortable. Accuracy is really bad. Interception to touchdown ratios high, but did decrease over the second half of the year. So really isn't good at post snap reads. He's good pre snap, but when the play actually starts to break down, he's not good at picking up defensive shells. So if somebody's shelled up in cover 3, but they're really playing in cover 2, he's not good at picking up and anticipating on the shells. And that really seems to throw him for a loop. So yeah, that's my take on him. Again, just overall athleticism makes him hard to want to pass up on, and the upside's exciting.
Definitely. All right. I know what I have at my 2-1. I have a feeling I know what your 2-1 are. Who's your QB2?
All right, my QB2 is going to be Bryce Young. Okay. Here we'll go into it a little bit. I know this is the age-old question. We're going size versus ability, some would say. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Bryce Young for me, he's the most consistent of the quarterbacks. So I know I have most consistent under pressure and with a clean pocket. So he operates effectively when he has time. He actually operates effectively when he doesn't have a lot of time. So he's very good at that. He stays calm when the play breaks down. And he's little. All right. So hold on. We'll continue with that. Because everybody knows that. I'm gonna get into a little more. But he's the best play creator in the class. Again, he's the best at ad-libbing and creating as the play breaks down. He's a good athlete, but he's not elite. So he can escape, but he's not going to be the guy getting a bunch of design runs. He's not going to jump off the stat sheet as a dual threat quarterback. He analyzes and reads the game quickly. Like he processes the game very quickly and has a high football IQ, you can tell. Fast release. Like I said before, elite escapability. Best overall on the draft at moving in the pocket. Like I said with Anthony Richardson, he struggles knowing where to go and when to leave, when to stay. But he also keeps his eyes upfield, unlike Will Levis. So what they do wrong each, he's kind of the combination of the two goods, and he keeps his eyes up, and that's what makes him make plays, is because he never loses sight of what's happening down the field. And actually, so remember what I was talking about earlier with Russell Wilson and how if you look at the stats and a lot of the shorter quarterbacks, they only target the sidelines. They target the middle of the field sometimes, but it's really hard for them to see over the line to target the middle of the field more. That's actually not the case for him. If you look at he actually targets the middle of the field just as much as he targets the other part, and he's really good over the middle of the field. So that's one that I'm curious to know how that differs for him. His accuracy is above average. So that was my last pro. And then cons, small, and he's had injuries. His arm talent is average. He's nothing crazy going to jump off a stat sheet. His arm talent is kind of like right there middle of the pack with the other quarterbacks. And due to that, his deep ball accuracy is occasionally misfired, just due to the lack of arm strength, and not always setting his feet. Sometimes he'll try to fire the deep ball, but he won't just really take the extra second to set his feet and throw, and that'll cause him to underthrow. He takes a lot of unnecessary hits. Now that for him is going to be difficult. Like he's going to have to overcome that. And just occasionally tries to do too much with the play. Sometimes it results in turnovers for him, but sometimes he makes a spectacular play. So you're willing to live with that. For me, with him, I know size is a concern, right? Yeah, size is always a concern. But for me with him, it's not like a normal size as if it's just the height, right? Other quarterbacks are kind of built stockier, right? You got your guys outside of Lamar, but Lamar is just another level athlete to Bryce. But if you look at your guys like, you know, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is stacked. Like he's little, but he's stacked. But when you look at Bryce Young's frame, he's very slim and slender. And to me, I think that's the difference. Yes, I think Bryce Young has the higher ceiling, but again, I think Bryce Young has the lower floor of the two of him and Stroud because he's so slight, like undersized, not in just height, but build, like an RG3 type. And even RG3 was athletic, but he took too many hits. So until I know that's going to be corrected and I know that he can hold up at the next level, you know, I find it hard to put him above CJ Stroud because CJ Stroud is really good as well, but we'll get into that a little bit more. But yeah, so that's my biggest knock on him. What puts him down as two is this, look at his frame, look at his size, and, you know, got the arm talent. We know that, but I just don't think it's going to, I don't think he's going to last long. I hope he does, but I think injuries could pile up.
Okay. All right. So you said we're going to get into CJ Stroud. Indeed, we are right now at my QB2. I have CJ Stroud. He's got great size, 6'3", 215. I don't blame him for the loss against Georgia. I mean, if you look, right, he had 4 passing touchdowns, 350 yards, and that's against the elite Georgia Bulldogs defense. He also had a depleted receiving core in that game in which he did it as well. He had the second highest QBR in the entire nation last year. He threw over 40 passing touchdowns in both of his years starting at Ohio State. You know, I think if he goes to one of those offenses that we were talking about, you know, that has the talent already ready for him, you know, Indy, Seattle. I also have Detroit, and this is kind of a stretch, but even Carolina on there. Mm-hmm. He's immediately surrounded with talent and, you know, the support he's needed to succeed early along in his development. I think he's probably the best passer in this quarterback class. You know, he's got the best accuracy. He's got elite ball placement amongst all these rookie quarterbacks, right? He's got potential to grow. Like, you know, it's not like we're seeing him at his ceiling, right? He has amazing progression that he's got an amazingly high ceiling that he can grow to at the NFL level. The only reason he is not my QB1 is the mobility. You know, I'm a first and foremost always a PPR type of fantasy football player. So I love the mobility in quarterbacks. You know, I picked up Justin Fields in my redraft league this past year, middle of the season. Mm-hmm. Justin Fields, his passing numbers don't jump off the stat sheet, but he still finished as a QB1 because of the legs. Mm-hmm. And this is the exact opposite for CJ Stroud. You see some of these quarterbacks that are tremendous passers, but they don't reach the absolute top levels of the QB1 status because they don't have the 500-600 rushing yards and 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns with them. So that's really the only reason. He doesn't really run the ball enough, or when he does, he doesn't really possess the ground game that you really want in a top fantasy quarterback. I think he goes in the top 5 picks of the NFL draft, if not top 3. So are you hurting yourself? Are you hurting your fantasy team by drafting him? Absolutely not. But going into our QB1 conversation now, right? Mm-hmm. You have Stroud at 1. I have Young at 1. I'm basically going to reiterate a lot of the facts that you're going to read about Young that you said already. Bryce Young, QB1, went up against, from day one, went up against SEC defenses, Big Ten defenses in the playoffs and championships and stuff like that. Had an amazing collegiate career. He is a great decision maker. He's athletic. He's not elite athleticism, but he's athletic. Mm-hmm. I have the same thing here. Good, but not great arm. Questions around his size. My note on the size argument, mm-hmm. right? I don't think size is as much of an issue in today's NFL, but it still plays a factor.
Yeah.
10 years ago, 10 years ago, really, a smaller quarterback would not have been given a chance at all outside of the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
But now you are seeing productive quarterbacks on the smaller size scale. But there is still an issue. You see a lot of these smaller quarterbacks still get passes batted down at the line. Like you were saying, they don't go over the middle as much. So they're really hurting themselves by limiting their throws to only certain parts of the field, which defenses can then key in on and really game plan. Well, any smart defensive coordinator can key in on that and have their corners ready any day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
But Bryce Young, like you said, goes over the middle, no problem, stuff like that. He's like a quarterback size version of Devontae Smith to me, like the very, very skinny, but he can put weight on. He's only 20, 21. Like he's got time.
I think my thing with him was just putting muscle on that slight frame. He's just never going to be a bulky, stocky guy.
Sure. My biggest notes on Bryce Young is the advanced level of passing mechanics that he possesses at his current age.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the instinct that he has in the pocket to go ahead and make plays, extend plays, keeping his eyes downfield. He's got amazing quarterback intelligence,
mm-hmm.
which is something that you really just don't see out of any college quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He possesses NFL level QB intellect.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, with his athleticism and everything, I think as long as the team that he gets drafted to, whether it's Chicago, Houston, any team that trades for Chicago, whatever, right? As long as they actually do a good job in building a support cast around him, and this kind of goes for CJ Stroud too,
mm-hmm.
Then I think that you cannot go wrong with drafting Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, are you ready to move on to mine?
Yeah. Take us through old CJ.
All right. So CJ Stroud is my QB1. All right.
Yeah.
And hear me out. Here is why. Okay. So Stroud, we know NFL size, right? NFL arm, NFL accuracy. Now, throughout the season, the biggest knock on him was he needs to operate better under pressure. Well, the Georgia game was the best game he had, and he really showed the ability to operate well under pressure. He bought time when he needed to and made the throws when he needed to. He scrambled when he needed to. That game flowed so well for him, and against an elite defense. If he could translate all of that over into the NFL, he's going to be an immediate success. So pros with him though. Yeah. NFL frame, again, elite accuracy with a clean pocket. He's got great touch on his passes, anticipates well, great ball placement, does everything well throwing the football. Clean release. It's a good throwing motion. He's best when it's deep middle of the field. Looking at the numbers, deep middle is his most accurate part of the field. He has high level play processing. He has a high level ability to read defenses pre-snap and expose coverage flaws. To me, he's the best QB in the draft with a clean pocket. And again, because he has good escapability, not great, but again, like he showed that best QB in the draft with a clean pocket, he showed that he can be a really good QB, without a clean pocket. He's so reliant on the play to go clean over the course of the season, which, is when the play break down, he gets a little bit more anxious. But when the design play goes to design, he reads his progressions properly. It's beautiful. Now the cons with him, again, not good under pressure. He gets real careless when he gets outside of the pocket. Not good at going through his reads quickly. So he'll tend to get locked up on his second read before he can even get to his third, because he's processing the particular reads slowly when he's out of the pocket. decision making is bad under pressure when the play breaks down. And he's athletic enough to scramble and pick up yards, but he prefers to just use his arm instead. And again, Georgia game, if he can look like that, to me, he's far and away the QB1. Now, the biggest thing with him is, again, with his size and arm combination, I feel like he would be better put in a worse situation, if that makes sense. So he could, I think, do well enough on a team with a not great O-line if he's able to kind of develop some of that, that brings some of that stuff out that he did in the Georgia game. Because to me, Bryce Young in the NFL with a play breaking down in front of him is on a bad team is going to be much harder for him because he's not going to have people to immediately throw the ball to. Those guys are faster. His confidence could get knocked down or he could get banged up early. So that's another thing about CJ Stroud that I like about his build is just that, and his arm talent is like, if he can go somewhere, I think he'll have, if he can go in a worse situation than Bryce Young would be successful.
Okay. All right. Well, there you guys have it. Our top 5, well, I guess 6-ish top QBs in the upcoming rookie draft class. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell icon. Make sure that you are always notified whenever we drop new content. We are going to be dropping Dynasty fantasy football content throughout this upcoming draft season. So stay tuned next for our top 10 running back rankings. And we'll catch you guys in the next video.
All right, everybody. Peace out.